Cast.
And McAllister down the left field line. Connor Tate is going to round third. He will score. And rounding third is Blaylock. He will score. And the Dogs walk it off.
If you're looking for the latest Georgia Bulldog news in football, basketball, baseball, and recruiting, then you are in the right place.
It's third down, Bryce Young's career. You need 10, play clock at 4. From the pocket, launching downfield, underthrown and intercepted. Keely Ringo has an escort down the sidelines. All the way to the end zone, and Georgia is going to conquer the Crimson Tide.
Maya Stoddard and Jonathan Williams.
Georgia on the mountaintop. Demons be gone, and the drought is over. National champions at long last.
Just sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for these hot takes you're about to listen to.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Classic City Sports. As always, Jeremiah Stoddard, along with my buddy Jonathan Williams. We are excited about this. Definitely killed a monster before the show started, so I'm feeling super pumped and excited right now. So hopefully that is perceived well on the other side of it. It's going to be a loaded show. Got a lot to go over. Georgia absolutely demolishes South Carolina to start the season. A lot of national media out there about Georgia that's just very different than what we're used to as Georgia fans and Georgia media coverages. So we're going to cover a little bit of that and kind of the perception that is around this Georgia program as well. Then we're going to bring back the other segment that we've been doing every week is Classic City Pick'ems. It's going to be a fun one. Your boy is catching back up, and I feel good. And I feel good about my picks this week.
We'll see.
I feel good about my picks this week. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But later in the episode, then as always, we're going to wrap up a little bit of discussion around King of the Hill. And this one might
Georgia-based.
This one's a Georgia one, and it's maybe your quarterback.
Might hurt some feelings a little bit, but we'll see how it goes.
I don't know if anyone watches this show and it hurts your feelings. Well, then don't know what to tell you.
Stick around, please.
Stick around, yes.
Maybe
but
we'll
anyways,
you another time.
Get some stuff out of the way at the beginning, as you see across the bottom of the screen here. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if you
we're
see
11 away from 100.
We're getting there.
11 away.
We're getting there.
We know we can get there, but we need your guys' support, and you guys supporting us means a lot. And then you always know when we go live. You don't have to look at our tweets or anything like that. You just already know when we're going live. You'll get that nice little notification.
Pops up on the phone. You get to see
so nice
it.
and simple.
You're ready to go. Make sure you do that, and then while you're at it as well, make sure you go ahead and follow us on Twitter as well. As you can see, Dr. J Will, and there's an at the bottom of that, and I will fix that.
I don't have to.
That's messed up. I'll fix that.
Our producers
Classic City Sports or Classic City Pod, and then the Stodfather on Twitter as well. Make sure you hit us up on there. We're always sharing fun things, and then we're always just kind of interacting with people. We really enjoy the interaction there. We also enjoy it in the comment section. So if you're watching today, make sure you hit us up on there. We like to kind of pull stuff up and get into it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this. Georgia absolutely demolishes South Carolina. Not even a close one at all. You win by 41 points in a game that, we both came on here and said Georgia would dominate, but it really, really took off early. Didn't really seem like they gave them a chance to breathe, at all. And it's their home game. So your immediate reaction with this Georgia program, the title of the episode is Georgia really that much better than everybody else? Is that the case, or is maybe South Carolina not good? But Georgia made Oregon look terrible. Now Oregon looks pretty good now too. So
yeah,
what's the situation?
3 weeks in, yeah, Georgia's that much better than everybody else. Because, week one, it's kind of like, all right, we're kind of feeling things out, but still, dominant win from Georgia against a ranked opponent at the time. Then you go into week two, like, okay, you shut out Stanford. It's kind of what you've done for a while now. You've dominated those opponents as you should. You took care of business. Now you go into week three, first true road test of the game, first SEC opponent of the season, and then even close. It's not even close from the beginning.
No.
You dominated in every facet of
From
that
the opening
game.
snap.
South Carolina could not handle you at any portion of that game, or you hit them with everything, and they could not stop you. Brock Bowers demolished them on offense. Just continues to amaze us, even though we already know how good he is. He still does things that you still sit there and are like, holy cow, there's no way that a man like that moves that well and that quick. So, yeah, in short, yes, Georgia is that much better than everybody else. I think at this point, you can say that. It is safe to say 3 weeks in, can you name me a weakness that Georgia has right now? Some people might say defensive line because, again, they went with 0 sacks this week. They had 9 QB pressures around that number against South Carolina. They're getting to the quarterback,
and just watch
guys.
how fast these quarterbacks are
They're
getting rid of the ball.
after them. And that's
They're getting
the thing.
rid of it really
the
quickly.
Scouting report against this defense is when you get that sucker, you better have it out quick. You can't hold on to this thing or they will get you to the ground every single time. That's why
Spencer Rattler was very uncomfortable.
And that's why I think sacks are an overrated stat. If that's how you're basing a defensive line's performance, take it somewhere else because it has no merit in my opinion. If you actually watch the games, this defensive line is creating havoc in the backfield. And to that, I will say again, tell me a weakness on this team. Maybe the punter, Brett Thorson, but even then he's looked pretty solid as well.
Georgia weakness on the team, like overall on the team, all right, on the offensive side, you can say they don't have a lot of depth at wide receiver, necessary proven depth right now. But once we've talked about that on the show before, Georgia has had several guys that have been dealing with injuries over the years that are starting to get back into it this season. You got Kearis Jackson, Rosemy-Jacksaint was out for a little while, and Blaylock still really hasn't made his presence very known, like coming back into the season. They're taking it easy on him. So those guys are still stud like wide receivers. They just aren't making a big name for themselves. Obviously tight ends insane. The biggest weakness Georgia has right now, and this is the most bizarre thing that I could ever imagine saying about this Georgia team, especially under Kirby Smart in the past few years, is the weakness, and it's not even that weak overall. The running back room is not as productive on the ground as you're used to seeing at Georgia. Now, Kenny McIntosh is making up for it by being super productive in the passing game, having a ton of receiving yards throughout the past couple of games, had 117 yards against Oregon. And so they're making up for it in different facets that way. But the rushing attack from Georgia could probably use some boost. I would say that's the spot that I would like to see a bigger game out of one of the running backs running the ball. And Dejon Edwards looked pretty good this past week too, though.
How insane is that to say, though?
It's weird. I don't like saying that's like a bizarre statement.
For the last 10 years, the statement has been, we know how well we can run the ball. We know how good we are running the ball. We just need the passing game to step up. You're here now. Your passing game, even with your star wide receiver Adonai Mitchell out, you're still tossing the ball around pretty well because you got a guy like Brock Bowers. And I'll say this about the wide receivers. You may not have a dude in the wide receiver room. Like, you may not just have a guy that can do it. You
don't
all,
have a George Pickens necessarily.
Dominate from all three levels of the field and could get everything done. But you have a bunch of guys that excel at their role specifically.
They really do. Yeah.
Like Rosemy-Jacksaint, he's not going to be your guy going off for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns or anything like that. But you know what he does do? He blocks his tail off.
I'm
on
glad
the
you said that.
boundary.
Did you see the first touchdown?
Just watch him. Anytime he's lined up out there,
watch.
He's sending dudes into the turf, man.
If you need an example of that, go watch the first touchdown of Georgia last weekend on that double reverse, that reverse play that to Brock Bowers going outside. Who's the lead block and who is locking the whole time? Rosemy-Jacksaint has his dude just absolutely bodied up in the corner.
And he doesn't every
even
week.
Yeah, he does. And he doesn't even remotely give the guy space to get into the play going up against them. On that same play, by the way, Stetson Bennett throwing a nice little block on a guy that freed up Brock Bowers the rest of the way. This team just cares.
They have guys at wide receiver that excel at what they are supposed to do. Ladd McConkey is going to be your guy in the slot or really anywhere on the field. He's going to be your playmaker from behind the line of scrimmage, from deep shots down the field to slant routes over the middle. He's going to get it done. You got pristine route runners at some positions like Kearis Jackson and just guys that can make plays in different ways. Adonai Mitchell is probably your closest thing to having someone that can do it at all 3 levels of the field and get it all done together. But then again, you have 6 guys right now that are excelling in their specific roles in this offense, and I think that's what makes this offense so dang good.
It really does. And the passing game is something that, go back to last season, and it was a lot of learning stuff to go. You do have a new quarterback that's trying to take over, not new in the system in general, but new to starting, and so they're trying to, help him a little bit get along. This year, it's the complete opposite, man. This year, they're saying Stet's the guy that's got it, and he's just out here slinging it, and we'll get to that more later, so I won't go too far into that.
How about the juke he hit today? Oh my gosh.
It
Guys,
was very. Y'all remember the juke that DeAndre Swift hit against Kentucky?
I literally said on my timeline, DeAndre Swift, is
I
that
didn't
you?
even see that, but that like from a few years ago
Oh
was
my
Kentucky,
gosh.
where he hit the dead leg, basically jumped back, and 2 defenders just went flying.
Sneaky
It's
athletic.
essentially what just happened in that
People
South
see
Carolina.
him. People still see him as this goofy, unathletic walk-on quarterback. But holy cow, he continues to make plays with his arm, and he continues to make plays with his legs. He can do it all. He is doing it all for Georgia, and there's a reason why nobody's stopping this offense yet. And they make it look so easy every single time. It amazes me. I can't even imagine how this offense is going to look by game 8 when you're really clicking on all cylinders, when you do have Adonai Mitchell back in the lineup and things are just working so well. All the kinks are worked out. It's going to be amazing, guys. It already is amazing, but I think it is truly going to be something special.
This is what's going to make it special, right? Is everyone's sitting here everyone's going, man, this team has played. Yeah, who have they really played right now? Well, they've played Oregon, who is a top 15 team right now. Still, Georgia made them look stupid. And then the next 2 games, they've bounced back, and now they're back up into the top 15. They were in the top 15 when Georgia played them. They're back up there right now. So then you go to South Carolina, who nobody expects to be one of the elite teams or one of the crazy teams in the SEC even. I think we had them, 4th in the SEC East?
Yeah, middle of the
somewhere around there.
pack.
Like right around
we
like
thought that
6 or
they'd be
7
a little
wins.
bit better than they were last year.
About 6 or 7 wins is where we had them. So a 6 or 7 win team in the SEC goes at their house, their own house, and they lose by 41 points to this team.
And thank you for bringing that up. What did we hear all offseason? There was 2 teams or 3 teams actually all year that people said this is going to be the team that upsets Georgia. Kentucky was one of them. Okay, they're probably going to finish second in
Kentucky's
the East.
going to be a good team.
Tennessee, they have
good.
this offense that is pretty dang good. So, okay, whatever. And people said South Carolina. I don't hear anybody of those people who picked South Carolina to upset Georgia
Where y'all go?
peeping their heads out on Twitter, taking the heat right now.
Just
I
looking
haven't
for
heard
you.
a peep out of those people. I guess they went back under their rock. They got their little notice of fame over the offseason. And then when it was game time and they got put on notice, they just kind of took a step back, and they'll be back next offseason to say, I don't know, that Ole Miss or Vanderbilt's going to upset Georgia next year. I don't know. But, man, if you're going to stick your neck out there and you're going to make a claim that someone like South Carolina is going to upset Georgia at home, and then they get beat like they did 48-7, take the heat, embrace it. At least
It's not even close. It's not even like it was a 1-score game or even a 2-score game. It's a 41-point game.
I mean, at least continue to put your name out there so people keep seeing your name and take the clout. Yeah, Takeo Spikes, hadn't heard his name
He's
since.
silent.
Haven't heard a peep out of
Somebody
him.
just go dig up that tweet or his stuff and send it to me because I'm posting it later just because I'm a little petty sometimes. Jay Will laughs because he knows. If y'all saw half the stuff I'll say in our text conversations, sometimes it gets pretty fun. Shouts to everybody in the comments right now. I appreciate y'all being active. I am seeing everything. So Rudes, Jay Griff, make sure y'all go ahead and tell.
Jay
y'all
Griff,
go ahead and tell.
if you're gonna
No. Go ahead and tell Harrison how it is over there. You trust me. You don't trust the doctor over here.
Whatever.
First of all, but I
We'll
appreciate
see.
everybody
We'll
in there. Dan, Harrison, I see y'all. And
Jay
Zach,
Griff,
as always, we appreciate
you got to
it.
hold your end of the bargain, though. If you're going to say Vandy's beating Bama, you take the heat if they don't, because I don't see that one working out in your favor. But, hey, kudos to you for just at least putting yourself out there. and
Put
making
yourself
the claim.
out there. And
Stand in the heat. Stand and take all the bullets, man.
so but as Georgia fans, think about this. We're so used to everybody, especially in the national media, really taking shots at Georgia of stuff like that. They're always calling for those crazy upset games, and the game ends up going like the South Carolina game did. But they're just trying to be the guy out there that goes, hey, well, I called it. If it happens to happen, they'll be like, I'm the only one that said it. That was me. That I hate people
Kind of like
that.
you with USC right now.
No, because I think USC is still from the beginning of the
As
season.
soon as they lose Stoddard, I told you so. I told you. They're falling down. They're not going to be that good. Silent. Look at that.
What am I silent
Nailed it
on?
right on the head.
What am I silent on? No, USC is going to win. At the beginning of the season, I said 8 games. Now I think they could win 10. I'm giving them a little bit more credit than I said.
All right.
I said 8 because it was a big jump from last season. Now I think that they're capable of winning 10. We'll see how it plays out. I think that this is a pretty tough. No, Stoddard will not pick against USC this week. But when we get to our pick'ems, I really, really wanted to. Not even an emotional pick. I really wanted to just because I think
Look.
it's a good game. But
See, guys,
that's beside the point.
I've got him in training right now, and he's already applying all the things that I've taught him to the situation. Look at him; he's thriving already.
I'm trying to be smart. But before we get into all that, we'll get into talking about our pick'ems and stuff later. Anyways, but what I was saying is we're used to, as Georgia fans, seeing the media sit here and make those claims and stuff, right? We're used to all of that. This year is different right now. And at the beginning of the season, it was normal. At the beginning of the season, you heard, hey, Georgia lost 15 players to the draft. Georgia had 5 first-rounders on defense go in the draft. Well, they're going to have a step back on defense performance, so they're going to have to take a step back. Can they possibly be that great this year? I don't think so. That's what we were hearing to start the season, right? Well, guess what? Now we're 3 weeks in. What is the national media saying now? We got Paul Feinbaum out here going, hey, this is the new Bama. They reloaded. They didn't have to sit here and rebuild. They had all of that. They are built like a dynasty-type program. Haven't made a dynasty yet. You got to win more than one national championship to get there. But because they won that national championship, there were still doubters out there. All of a sudden, like I said a second ago, you go beat Oregon, make them look stupid, and all of a sudden everybody's going, hey, Oregon's really not that bad a few weeks in. South Carolina gets dominated at home, and then here we are. So as a Georgia fan, because we are Georgia fans on this show, we try to be a little unbiased at times. We are still Georgia fans on the show. How weird is that to hear the national media? And that's not the only person. Feinbaum's not the only one saying stuff like that. Yeah. It's everywhere. You have graphics from Fox Sports out there making stuff known for everybody. How does that feel as a Georgia fan? It's weird to me.
I think it's just a testament of what happens when you truly get over that hump that has been holding you back for such a long time. Because years prior, it didn't matter what Georgia did. There was always someone in the background, someone throwing in some noise about, well, Georgia's still Georgia. They're not going to win the big game. They're not going to be able to take it all the way because that's just who Georgia is. Now, all of a sudden, Georgia has beaten Alabama. Georgia has won a national championship. The gloves are off now, and everybody's willing to actually compliment Georgia. And because they're saying, well, what is holding them back anymore? Nothing. Because Kirby Smart has squashed any type of negativity around his program. He's doing it now again with the offense because even last year,
he's the narrative destroyer. That's what he is.
Even last year, everybody said, well, the Stetson Bennett and the offense won the national championship in spite of Georgia's defense. Now all of a sudden, they're looking like one of the top offenses in all of college football. So yet again, another narrative they used to squash and put under the dirt and just absolutely make it disappear.
Yeah.
But I think, and this is what I'll say. So after the national championship, it was all about, well, Alabama didn't have their 2 best wide receivers. The best team did not win that day. I'll tell you why the best team won that day. And it has to do with why Georgia is doing so good right now. Because Georgia was a banged up team last year. By all accounts, they were a team that was fighting the injury bug all season long. I think they had close to 13 players that were dealing with injuries going into the national championship. But you had guys like William Poole, who's no longer with the team anymore, unfortunately.
Sad story there.
But you had some young guys step up in some pivotal moments, Adonai Mitchell and Ladd McConkey being two of them, where you didn't miss a beat. And that's why Georgia was the better team that year, because Alabama didn't have the dudes to step up in those moments and take the game into their own hands.
You need to be able to have those young guys.
And it's the reason why Georgia's offense and team in general this year is as good as they are, and why people are saying they're the number 1 team in the nation, and why it is Georgia at the top and nobody else. And it's why Malachi Starks, a true freshman, is stepping up into that role and being one of the best safeties in all of college football. Already dominating at his position, and he's just getting his career started. That's why Georgia is the best team in college football and why they were the best team last year, because nobody has depth like Georgia does right now. Alabama doesn't have it right now. Nobody else does. Kirby Smart has built this team to last and for longevity, and for that reason, Georgia is the king of college football right now.
What a rant. That was fantastic. I had to get out of the frame for you a little bit.
I had one.
I had to back up
to give you my take for this one.
I like that. Yeah, you backed up a little bit on that one. That was good. I appreciate the enthusiasm that you brought to that one for sure. But no, well, first of all, I want to address something in the comments that I see. Yes, Buc-ee's, it's good. It's overrated. It's not.
We've been through this,
but they're going in the comments right now. And Rudes, I love you, buddy, but it is what it is. That's how we feel. But it is a pretty good gas station overall. I'll say that. But anyways, it's different. And that Kirby Smart has done nothing but year after year destroy the narratives. One of our earlier episodes, like a year ago at this point, or a year and a half ago at this point, was about like the narratives around him, right? He couldn't develop the quarterback. He couldn't beat Bama. He couldn't win the big games. He couldn't do all of these different things. Every single one of those has gone away. And like the biggest one right now is about not being able to develop talent, right? Georgia lost all of those players. What did they do? Did they get anybody in the transfer portal?
Nope.
They did not.
If Kirby Smart ain't dipping his hand into the transfer portal, good luck.
They didn't have a spot for somebody this year. This is the first year in the last 3 seasons that Georgia hasn't gone out and addressed areas of need by getting some veteran presence out of the transfer portal. You had Tyke Smith last year. You had Darion Kendrick last year. Eric Gilbert last year. Because at tight end was some questions.
Eli Wolf, Trey
McKitty were big ones at tight end position where he was going through these different spots. He went out and got these players, and they didn't need that this year.
No, they did not.
They didn't have a spot for somebody. They were over scholarship counts. We were talking about that for a month going into the season, going into spring and stuff, and then into the summer, we were sitting going, there's too many people on this team on scholarship. I don't know what they ended up doing at the end of it. Some of those scholarships had to have disappeared or something because they were able to figure something out to keep some of those players, because there was about 4 more players I thought needed to be off the team, based on scholarship availability.
Well, and the crazy part is Amarius Mims was one of those guys, and he still comes back to the University of Georgia, and you still hold on to him. But even in the midst of time where you do have to probably cut down some guys, cut down on your roster, and you do lose some people to other SEC teams, a couple of them going out to Arkansas and other schools, you still get another big prospect, or who was a big prospect, to come back to your team, and you're still loaded down.
Yeah, exactly. So this one, as far as the narrative around him not being able to develop talent, absolutely demolished this season because he didn't have to go get help. Bama got several players. Bama got Jermaine Burton. They got Jahmyr Gibbs, and some other players out there as well. They had to go get help this season.
Have you heard anybody talking about any of those 3?
Gibbs has been a little quiet
in a positive way.
I think Gibbs will play well.
But
I think there hasn't been any big splash. Bama's been a weird team this year.
I ain't heard a peep about Jermaine Burton. I ain't heard a peep about Jahmyr Gibbs, and I ain't heard nothing about Eli Riggs.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see how that plays out in the long term. I think it's early. They're still trying to develop what they can do in the system. Maybe it's just they're not ready to go in the system as much yet, and they haven't been able to perform. But they will.
And one of the positions that people wanted Kirby Smart to potentially go out and get was beef up the defensive line, considering that was where you lost most of your players to the draft. Yeah, but now you got Mykel Williams, a true freshman, coming off the edge, and he's playing phenomenal as another true freshman. So now you got Williams and you got Starks on your defense, two true freshmen. They're just balling out, man. So that's why I said when Kirby Smart is not dipping his hands into the transfer portal, even though he's expected to have a very young, inexperienced group on defense and maybe some things to figure out on offense, and he doesn't do anything, he just sits there and lets it play out. That's why I said, watch out. You better be praying for yourself because he's liking what he has now, and that's concerning if you're not Georgia.
What Georgia has to start to develop into now, the biggest area, it's not even an area of concern, but the next box for him to be able to take care of is the new way of recruiting stuff and the way NIL stuff has played a big factor. Some of these big names, NIL battles are going to start to become more and more relevant and more of an importance. And it's going to take Georgia, at some point, it's going to have to try to dip their toe a little bit further into that to make sure they can continue to build the depth that they currently have and not have these random, because think about why was Texas A&M getting all those players last year, this past recruiting class, when their team has not been good for, ever. Since Johnny Manziel has been there. So it's been 10 years at this point since they've been a relevant team. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they have the number 1 recruiting class ever. It's because they threw money at everybody and they got all these big names. And yeah, they haven't done anything yet, but they're freshmen. So you got to give them 2 to 3 years to really see how much they go into it. But Georgia is still in the top 5 recruiting classes. With all of that being said, you got to hope that they can continue to keep it that way, even with the NIL stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of money going around on the Georgia side that we don't know about because they don't advertise it as much. But that is the next question mark for Kirby Smart. Can he continue to do it in the new era that we're entering right now? That's going to be the next question mark. But everything else, check, done. He's done everything. And the national media is now really starting to give him credit, and it's weird. Last thing I'll say on this, and then I'll kick it back to you. Georgia, as a program, needs to be careful with some of the stuff that's out there. But you as a fan, dude, just talk your crap. Just enjoy every bit of this. Every time you hear the national media talking something good, it's not rat poison for you. You're a fan. You can say whatever you want. That doesn't matter. We all act like we're part of the team in the sense of we love the program and we're so in depth into this stuff, like where we care so much about it. But what you think and what you do doesn't impact the team at the end of the day on that. So you can enjoy the fact that Georgia's the number one team in the country. You can enjoy the fact that they're blowing everybody out. You can enjoy that the national media is finally starting to respect your program. That stuff, it's perfectly okay as a fan right now. You are allowed to do it, so enjoy it. These are the glory days of this program. These are the days that we will look back on in 20 years and go, dang, that was insane. That's where we're at. Enjoy it.
All fans should want out of their football team is be relevant. Be in the discussion like you are right now. Be the team where anytime national television is on and college football is a topic, Georgia's name is being thrown in it every single time, like they are. Anytime you talk about college football right now, it always circulates back to Athens and what Kirby Smart is doing with his program and how good Georgia looks and how much better they look compared to anybody else. Winning a national title is hard. And if you set that expectation every single year, you're probably going to be let down more years than not. But if you just wish for relevancy and you just want to be in the mix and you want your team to be a big talking point compared to everybody else, you're going to have some good times as a Georgia fan with Kirby Smart as your head coach, as you already have. But yeah, when your team is looking like this right now, when Georgia is being as dominant as they are, take advantage of it. Send those tweets off to your Florida fans. Talk your shit. Do it, man, because man, you never know what can happen. You don't know how
tables can turn one day, and all of a sudden Florida's back to being good.
Don't be throwing out all this. Oh, it's rat poison. They're just trying to feed us all this. They're just trying to feed us all this good.
The players need to worry about that. You don't need to worry about that.
No,
you get to enjoy.
Beat your chest, talk
fun.
your stuff, retweet, subtweet, do all that stuff.
And hey,
have fun.
The reason that Georgia's schedule just got announced yesterday for 2023, and which we all. If you've kept up with stuff, the schedule's basically been, except out of conference stuff, has been decided for like a decade at this point because you know which teams you're getting from the West each year at this point. You get Ole Miss this year. And then you were supposed to play against Oklahoma. That got canceled, so that kind of kills your strength of schedule a little bit there. But the reason that all these other teams, especially your rival teams, are going, yeah, y'all schedule is weak. Well, my dude, it's because we're playing against you and you're not having a good season, or you're not playing very well lately.
It's weak because Georgia's so good.
And Georgia is just that dominant.
That's why.
It's weak because you're that much better than everybody else. That is exactly why your schedule is weak. Why is Tennessee's schedule stronger? Well, they play Georgia, and Georgia's a top 3 team to start the season every year right now. Like, that's going to continue to happen next year too. Like, that is why their schedules are stronger than yours. And Florida, Florida pulls LSU every year from the West. LSU is terrible.
Alabama or Tennessee, unfortunately, pulls Alabama.
They get the short end of the stick because they have a constant rival with Alabama.
Again, like it just teeter-tots because Florida sometimes is a national program and sometimes they are in the top 10. They were for a really long time, and Georgia had to play them every single year. So it just kind of goes both ways. Auburn sometimes is like that as well. So it all really just depends on – look, if your opponents just happen to be doing bad, you can't do nothing about it. And Georgia just so happens to be at this point in their time as a program where they're better than everybody else. And so that's going to make people say, well, their schedule is weak. They don't have any strength of schedule. But look, at the end of the day, Georgia takes care of business every single year. They're going to be in the playoff. They're going to. So from that standpoint – there's no complaints. You might get a night game next year with Ole Miss. Kentucky's at home as well. Those are probably going to be 2 of your best home games. Those are 2 really good games to have at home. So, and maybe you take a trip up to Nashville for Vanderbilt. Have a good day. Just relax a little bit.
Nashville's fun. Yeah. Nashville's a good spot to go visit. When one thing we talked about at the beginning of the year, and maybe we'll save this for next week. This will be a teaser on it. What we broke down our record predictions for the entire SEC and stuff, and what we sat here going, man, the SEC East is going to have like a top to bottom pretty decent conference as far as like you got Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida. Those teams are going to all be like at least like 6 wins or somewhere around that spot. And then you've got some teams that like teetering at 9 and 10 wins on the spot behind Georgia on that side. And then on the other side in the West, you don't have like it's a little less dominant at the you don't have the teams over there that are just that much better all the way through. And we talked about it. We were like, but then maybe when you put them direct side by side, like the second team in the SEC East versus the second team in the West, maybe that doesn't really go the East's way. At this point, that's worth evaluating right now because Texas A&M was a team that we were going to we had at the second place spot. And if that were the case, we put Kentucky at second too. I would take Kentucky over Texas A&M right now.
I mean, yeah, you can make the argument for it.
I would take them over Texas A&M. I would bet on that if I was going to pick one of those 2 teams. That's who I would take.
2023. This is. I
Whoa.
think I put. I did. I'm not used to this, guys, as you can clearly tell. This is all I'm excited for next year. You got Lane
It's going to
Kiffin.
be good.
Look, I'm telling you, I pray if they give that a 7:30 kickoff slot, night game in Athens. You got Lane Kiffin coming in town. The sound bites are going to be so good. Lane Kiffin going against a guy that he used to work with at Alabama. I mean, it would just be perfect. As Lane Kiffin has said himself, get your popcorn ready. Oh my gosh, that's the best case scenario you can hope for next year, and I hope that's what they give us next year, or what they give Georgia next year.
Should be. I mean,
give them that night game.
That should be a night game. If that's not a night game, if you give me a darn 4 p.m. kickoff, it's not terrible. But like at the same time, don't give me a midday game on a game like that. What better game is there going to be?
It'll happen.
If you,
it probably will be.
Oh my god! If you give me a noon kickoff for Ole Miss and
But
Georgia in
speaking
Athens,
of schedule started, I want to talk about some Week 4 college football. So go ahead, get your pick'ems out. We're jumping
All right.
right into it.
all right.
Speaking of being relevant, I'm the relevant one right now in the conversation. Still, Stoddard
You
did
missed
have
one
a
last
pretty
week.
solid weekend. Yeah, I missed one.
You missed one last. Well, we only picked 2, so you were 50%.
Well, look, I said let's pick 3. You said no, let's stick with 2 this week. So I stuck
This
with 2.
week you struggled to find your second one, so I don't know if I
I
would
did.
pick
There's
a
not a lot of great
I'm not-
games this week, guys. But we still
it's
managed.
quality, not quantity. I'm not going to sit here and pick 5 teams.
But the
and it's gonna be
update
terrible
of the
picks.
records, 5-2 right here for your boy. I missed out on Nevada versus Iowa. I'm going to blame that on like the 12-hour delay that the game had. Who expected Iowa to put up 27 points after putting up 14 total in 2 weeks? Sheesh. But Stoddard did go 2-0 last week, so he's back to 3-4. Still losing record. Just throwing that out there.
This week
But
is good. I got both of my picks
He
this week are
does
hitting.
have the potential to tie up the series. Actually,
I do,
You
and I'm
Well,
getting
even if
even if you get one of them right, I might be down on that. But I'm getting over 500 this week. I am. I'm getting
so
over.
go
500.
ahead, give us your first one, Stoddard. Let's hear it.
All right, so I'm going to take Baylor at plus 2.5 over Iowa State. Iowa State is their big win was against Iowa in a game that it was 10-7 or something like that, and they haven't been able to do anything really other than that. I think Baylor is a team that has actually shown some promise this year. Yeah, they've dropped a game, but it was BYU, which was a top 25 team when they played them as well. So I do think that Baylor's going to be able to hold a 2.5 point. I think they're actually they're down on that, but if you look at the FPI, I'm pretty sure they have the advantage on that FPI.
Last time I put all my eggs in
Well,
on Baylor,
that's-
it did not go well.
they didn't like you. They're
They did not.
gonna take mine though. Don't worry about that.
I don't know about that. My first pick for this week, I'm rolling with the Volunteers. They're a 10.5 point favorite over Florida. Ever since that opening weekend, Florida has not looked good. Anthony Richardson has looked abysmal. Never seen a player's hype fall off as fast as Anthony
We're
Richardson.
3 games in, the dude doesn't have a touchdown.
I mean, he
pass.
beats Utah, and all of a sudden he's everybody's like, he's the Heisman frontrunner. Oh, he's Vince Young 2.0. He's Cam Newton. Now he's got 4 interceptions, like 400 passing yards on the year.
no
It looks
touchdowns.
Absolutely not even a
Passing
passing
touchdowns.
touchdown yet. Just looks horrible. Florida has not looked too hot. Barely scraped by against USF. Took a miracle for them to get out of there with a win. So I'm taking Tennessee's offense on this one. I don't think that Florida's. I'm not saying that because I think Florida's defense bad. I think it's more so I don't see Florida's offense being to hang with them. I don't think they're going to be able to score with them. So 10.5 points. I'm taking the Volunteers on that one. I think it's going to be another rough week for Florida.
So I definitely think Tennessee wins that game. When you look at a division game like that, it's 10.5 points feels like a lot, but I think Tennessee's definitely going to win the game. I think it's going to be close to that. I think that's a pretty good line to give because it could easily be a 14, 15-point game. It could also be a 7 or 8 point game kind of thing like that. Like it really teeters right there that it makes it's a tough pick.
Nope.
I looked at it. I did look at it, and I just personally I didn't want to touch it. So that's yours. Take that step. Take that step. My second one.
Sometimes you just got to drop your manhood, Stoddard, and you just got to pick it and roll with it.
You say that, but then we had some conversations earlier.
I took Vandy last week, all right, and I came out on a good end of that
You
one.
did. Vandy's got 3 wins.
They already surpassed their season total of what we had.
Well, they also have just now entering their SEC schedule at this point. So
Maybe Jay Griff was onto something. Maybe
Jay Griff, maybe they'll get
Bama on upset alert? Question mark.
this weekend.
Oh,
We'll see how that goes. But The next one, and actually, Dan, you'll appreciate this one. I've got Arkansas at +1.5 over Texas A&M. I think it's at Texas A&M, so it is a road game.
Huge
Well,
game.
it's at Texas A&M, but it's in Arlington. It's at AT&T
Huge
Stadium.
game for both teams.
That's a pivotal game.
Big game.
It
for
really
both
is
teams.
because you got Arkansas that's trying to be dominant right now. They beat South Carolina. They're going to go on to, well, it's kind of a road game for them, and they're going to see what they can do against Texas A&M, who hasn't looked very good. It can put Arkansas at a really, really good spot to challenge Bama. I'm not saying they take Bama's spot. Don't take it the wrong way, but challenge Bama in the sense that they'll be that number 2 team that's really, really close. Because if they get past Texas A&M and they're still undefeated, other outside of Bama on that SEC West schedule, they could go 10 to 11 wins at that point. They really could, because Texas A&M, I believe, is a game that we probably gave to Texas A&M on our season predictions. And now we've kind of changed gears. Texas A&M does not look near as good on there. But at 1.5 points as well, that is such a close game that I saw it and I was like, "Oop, that was actually the first one that I kind of gravitated towards this week." And I genuinely think that Arkansas and Sam Pittman's going to kind of make a statement game, not necessarily blowing them out, but making a statement win in Texas, in Arlington, and go back to Arkansas 4-0.
That's a bold. I won't say bold pick. That's a good game to pick. I hope it's a good game, especially considering Georgia's opponent this week being Kent State. All you really hope for at that point, you're just hoping for other good games across college football. I, for one, hope that one's down to the wire.
I do. But I do want that to be a good game.
You guys already know. I already said Arkansas would be my next team in line if Georgia were to some reason never exist. So I'll be riding with the Pigs and Sam Pittman over there for that one. Big win if they can pull it off. Next one for me, going back out west, going to realign with Dan Lanning and his Ducks. They are a 6.5 point favorite over Washington State. They looked real good last week. After playing Georgia, Oregon
looked good 2
Oregon
weeks
has
after.
looked like a solid team
they're a
after
good
their
team.
game against Georgia. So now kind of the conversation is starting to be, well, is Georgia just that good? Or is Oregon just that bad? Now it's kind of looking like, okay,
hence the title if you see it again.
Georgia
is
is just
really that much
good?
better?
Because Oregon all of a sudden is looking like a pretty solid football team. Like we said earlier in the offseason, we said Dan Lanning is going to have a pretty solid football team with Oregon this year. They have good players, especially considering your opponents out in the Pac-12. That's going to be a good football team. So I'll take them at 6.5 over Washington State. I think the Dan Lanning is going to keep the ball rolling for them boys out there. As long as Bo Nix doesn't do me dirty, I like my odds in that one. So
I really struggle to pick anything with Bo Nix at this point because he is capable of losing you that game. He'll win you some every once in a while, but man, he is very
I'm not
capable.
putting my faith in Bo Nix. I'm putting my faith in Dan Lanning.
I'm with you.
Faith in
and
Dan
I like
Lanning.
that pick for a couple of reasons. Like, one, I think Oregon genuinely is a decent team this year, like a pretty good team. I'm not taking them out of the Pac-12 race because they lost to Georgia. That's not a fair measuring stick
It's not
to
even
give
a conference loss.
No, it's not a conference loss. So it does not mess with their Pac-12 standings and their ability to potentially challenge that title. And when the Pac-12 looks the way that it does overall, we'll see what USC can do and how that goes. And then Utah, we'll see how they continue to play. But those 3 teams, it could go either way right now. So I do think that they're a pretty good team. One, the better that Oregon plays, it makes Georgia look even better. So I'm pulling for them in that sense as well. And plus, Dan Lanning, you want him to have, I want him to succeed out there. And I think he could have a pretty good year. You remember a couple weeks ago, before the season officially started, one of my bold takes of everything is I said Oregon could win 10 games this year. We'll see. I mean, then they played pretty bad against Georgia, but that was Georgia. They could still challenge for 10 wins this year. We'll see. They've got some tough games, but we'll see. I do like
something
that
about Pac-12 teams and 10 wins for you, huh? That just does it.
I do.
You.
I like it. No, it was 8 originally. I moved it to 10 for the
now
other
we're
one.
shifting gears. We're moving the
everything's on
goalposts.
tape. Go watch the tape. You see where my answers have been consistent.
I know, and I've been giving you hell for it, and rightfully so, because I don't know. I still feel like USC is probably still your favorite to win the Pac-12, but that doesn't mean Oregon and Dan Lanning still can't have a great season, considering that you got a first-year head coach. I know that USC does, but considering with what you got, Dan Lanning, to put together a 10-win season or possibly better, it's a good year for you, and I think they can pull it off. So to recap, Stoddard, go ahead and recap your picks real quick.
Baylor +2.5 against Iowa State, and then Arkansas +1.5 against Texas A&M.
And I got Tennessee as a 10.5 point favorite over Florida, and then also Oregon 6.5 point favorite over the Washington State Cougars. Go Cougs! So now we're going to shift back into our other segment, our final segment, And I don't know how this topic is going to roll over with the crowd, or how it's just going to go over the entire fan base, the UGA faithful.
They should
Because-
be. Listen,
I can just see it now. What my answer is going to be for this, I can just see it now. Like, oh, the young millennial. Of course he would say something like that. So I'll pose the question now. With Stetson Bennett getting the Heisman hype that he's getting right now, he's in the top 4 right now in the Heisman race. He has the 4th best odds, only behind C.J. Stroud, Caleb Williams, and still Bryce Young, which technically I think he should be top 3 at this point with Bryce Young behind him. But that ain't my job. Anyways, if he were to even make the trip to New York, or even better, win the Heisman Trophy, does Stetson Bennett become the GOAT of Georgia football?
if he wins the Heisman Trophy, the answer to that is yes. And the reason, there's so many reasons behind it. Because think about it. Georgia has not had a Heisman Trophy winner since Herschel Walker. And that's the argument that's going to pop up with everybody as well. Herschel Walker's still the best player in Georgia history, all that kind of stuff. Well, Stetson Bennett, it's about the ability to play at the level that he is, and then the story of the climb that he has made that I think is so relevant to this conversation, that the dude is out here. He wins you a national championship when he's doubted by everybody, and everybody's calling for the other team or the other quarterbacks, backups on the roster, any other quarterback on the roster. They would have taken, Brock Vandagriff as a true freshman over Stetson last year. Well, then we start this season, and all of a sudden he's got 952 passing yards to start the year, 5 touchdowns through the air, and 3 rushing touchdowns as well. And he's on track. And I tweeted this and put an article out on this week as well. So shouts to dogsdaily.com. Go check that out if you want.
First one in 4 months for your boy.
It has not been 4 months. Has not been 4 months. But anyways, you're getting me distracted on my take here. He is on track right now to not only just break Aaron Murray's record for most passing yards in a single season, but demolish Aaron Murray's single season passing record right now. And through the first 3 games, Stetson has only played, he hasn't played in the fourth quarter in any of the games. He only played 1 drive in the second half against Samford last week. And we'll see, how it continues to play out. I'm not saying that I'm guaranteeing he's throwing for 300 yards over every single game the rest of the way through, but the defenses out there that they're playing aren't that challenging overall. They don't have any crazy defenses out there. If he throws at the same rate that he's currently at through the regular season, that would put him at 3,808 yards in the season, which Aaron Murray's record, I believe, is 3,890, somewhere around there, or 83 or something like that, that general area. So right behind him. And Aaron Murray did that over 14 games. Stetson would still then at that point have the SEC championship game. He would have at least a bowl game and possibly a national championship game at that point. So it could give him 15 total games. On pace to have 4,760 yards if he plays 15 games. That is more than Bryce Young had last year. That is almost 1,000 yards more than Georgia history. So I think it's safe to say I think he will then be able to pass over Aaron Murray's. And at that point, he wins the Heisman. How can he not be the best? Like, he has climbed from a walk-on to a transfer to junior college, comes back to Georgia, 4th on the depth chart. Then the next season comes around, he's 3rd on the depth chart, jumps over that, starts the second half or most of those games that year. This year is final year starter and climbs it and performs at this level. How is he not on the top of Mount Rushmore and that elite of elite for Georgia at that point? Build the statue.
I'll tell you what, if he even makes it to New York, or if he wins another national championship at Georgia, he's my GOAT for Georgia football. And it's not. And Dan, I see what you're saying. I knew this, and this is why I said what I said at the beginning of this segment, is that everybody's going to say you're really replacing Herschel Walker with Stetson Bennett. This isn't about from a talent standpoint. Herschel Walker is in his own in regards to that for Georgia football. He's on another level in regards to talent at a position. We all can agree on that. This is about the legacy that a man is leaving once he finishes his time at Georgia, what he has embodied during his time at the University of Georgia, what he has done for this program during his 6 years. He comes in as a walk-on. Look, if you win a Heisman and or a national championship, if you're Stetson Bennett and you do that after being a walk-on, going to community college, coming back on scholarship this time, 3rd-string quarterback the year after, 3rd-string quarterback again. Then you finally earn your starting role, and you have 1 national championship already under your belt. You ended the 41-year drought. You add another national title to that trophy case, or you add the first Heisman Trophy in 42 years. Yeah, I think you're the GOAT of your program because of all that. He has embraced the University of Georgia. He has shown nothing but love to this place, even though many people, fans, coaches, players, probably wrote him off quite a bit during that time. You've seen
fans wrote him off. It was going in the
Still
national
are doing
championship
it.
game last year, and they were writing
and
him
yet
off
he
still.
chose to come back again in efforts to bring another national championship back, is looking the part of being a national title winning quarterback. If he does all that, yes, Stetson Bennett is the GOAT. In my opinion, I think he is. I think he overtakes that. And again, it's not a discredit to what Herschel Walker did during his time at Georgia, and it's not about talent. It's just about what this man did and the legacy that he would leave behind in that scenario.
Think about this, too, for argument's sake of this whole conversation, is think about why Herschel Walker is considered the best player in Georgia history. He was the star player and the leading, guy on the national championship team back in the day. He won the Heisman Trophy, and then he was, he looked like the best player out there. Well, it was a different generation as far as like the level of competition stuff. And I'm not saying that he wouldn't still be good in this day and age. I think he would, especially at this day and age, though, with the way the Heisman Trophy goes, he probably wouldn't win the Heisman at this point in time. I love Herschel. He's incredible. But in this day and age, how tough it is for a running back to win the Heisman. He probably doesn't win the Heisman right now when you've got guys like Bryce Young last year throwing for 4,500 yards, Stetson Bennett out here going to throw for 4,000 yards this season, that kind of stuff. He probably isn't able to do it, and he's not going to necessarily get the same type of feature that he was able to get back then. So I think everyone should respect what Herschel Walker was able to do, but that doesn't mean that, just because he's so long ago, you can't pass the baton to somebody else in that aspect of it. And I think that Stetson has earned the right to make the argument this is all if we're still 3 games into the 12 to 15 game season right now. If he's able to get to New York, like you're saying, and he brings a second national championship to the state of Georgia.
If he just wins another national title, he's the GOAT still. And that's why I see your comments again saying like, well, Stetson's got a much better roster than Herschel did. Yes, that is true. But that's also because how much college football changes recruiting-wise.
Think about how good the college quarterbacks are
that's why
at this
I
point in
said
time, too, though.
From a legacy standpoint. From a legacy standpoint, he would be. He'd be the greatest player to ever play at the University of Georgia at that point. If he continues to put up these numbers, but like I said, even if he just wins another national title, which will be the first program in college football playoff history to win back-to-back titles, then yeah, that's GOAT status.
And my point is, think about the rosters, I understand, but think about the level of competition that Stetson has at the quarterback position around the league, around college football that he's competing with. You got C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young out here. You got Caleb Williams, all of these guys that are expected to throw for 4,000 plus yards. And everyone thought it was like, you might as well go ahead and hand the trophy over to C.J. Stroud this year. And Stetson Bennett's outperforming him thus far in the season. And if he continues to do that, that's where you got to make the other argument. Yeah, he's playing with better players, but college football as a whole is playing with better players. And if he's able to beat out these gunslinging quarterbacks that are across the league, that is something that's worth
even
mentioning.
Just being in that conversation for Stetson Bennett. That's a big deal.
It's insane.
And that's a hill I'm willing to die on, by God. That is the epitome of what this segment is supposed to be. A hill you are willing to die on, and Stetson Bennett being the GOAT in that scenario is a hill I'd be willing to die on. So that is going to do it for us, guys. That's everything. Holy cow. I feel like we went through a million things, touched a million different topics.
It was a fun one.
I'm sweating. I don't know if you can tell, but it got hot in here real quick. Moving around, just adrenaline running high. So I hope you guys enjoy the show. If you're still here, make sure to like the video before you leave. It really helps us out. If you aren't subscribed, please go subscribe. We're 11 away from 100. Really helps us out with the support and everything. And as always, guys, I'm going to let Starter take us out.
As always, keep it classy in the Classic City, and we will catch you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Classic City Sports. Take a second to subscribe, rate, review, and share with your friends and family. Feel free to reach out to the Classic City Sports Crew on Twitter with any topics you'd like discussed. You can reach out to Jeremiah at The Stodfather, to Jonathan at Dr._J Will, and make sure to follow at Classic City Pod for show updates. Check back next week for a brand new episode. In the meantime,
Two simple words which express the sentiments of the